All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Bills Guys, presented by the Buffalo Fanatics. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. As you guys are strolling in, hit us up. Let us know. I'm not seeing any audience count up at the top of the screen there, and I'm not seeing any comments in the comments section. Are we down again?
Let me go check out YouTube really quick, and I'll figure that out.
I'll
see
check
if we got
Facebook.
any comments rolling in.
I guess we just really piss people off. They don't like us anymore.
No, Corey Buffalo's in. Ryan's in. We got Chris Janke is in. Andrew Mulville is in. So the comments are coming through on YouTube. So
and they're coming through on Twitter. There's just a massive delay.
Okay. So we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. So we're on our own again.
That's okay. I'll keep it on YouTube and just make sure that people are getting the shout out. So Daniel Gowries is in. He says, "Hey Dave and the other guy," because you look unfamiliar to him. Ouch. Elliot is in. Stephen Campione is in, back and better than ever after he had mysteriously gotten blocked. I don't know why. And Smith is in. We got Davion already with the super chat. $4.99, best show of all time. Thank you, Davion.
That's all time. Wow, thank you.
That's high praise. I mean, wow. I'm half expecting to be like, "Psych, where's Rico?" after this.
Here's one thing
that is in, another regular. So we got people are in. We're getting comments on YouTube. So I'll keep track of that until we're caught up here.
Here's one thing that I want to say. Like, I'm gone one time. And I, don't have Josh Allen in like my top 5 quarterback list, and all of a sudden I'm the other guy.
Nah, they're just giving you a hard time because they love you, man. That's what people do. They give a hard time to people they love, right? So that's why.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Can I be the bearer of good news for tonight?
Yes, you can.
Trey White has opted in to the season. Trey White will be playing football for the Buffalo Bills this fall. He gave us a little bit of a scare there, and, we would have respected his decision either way. But thank you, Trey White. Lord knows that we wanted you and needed you on this defense. He's one of those players that seriously, he puts us over the top. He really does. He's one of those players where if we're going to compete for a Super Bowl this year, he's one of the guys who are going to get us there. So I'm really excited that he's coming back to play this fall.
Yeah, and obviously, now we know that Trey and Starr are the only 2 players on the Bills that opted out. And I think one thing that surprised me a bit was there was this kind of consensus or thought around social media and even just the media in general that there would be maybe a flurry of players across the NFL notifying clubs of that they were opting out today. And although we did have some, I don't think it was to the volume that a lot of people expected, right? I think that, you even had some teams where you had no players opt out. I believe the Falcons had no guys opt out, and a handful, right? So I believe the Pats and the Dolphins were the most, and I think the Browns were up there with 6 or 7 guys at most. So to be honest with you, it was kind of a quiet day from an opt-out perspective, and I thought that there'd be more. Sean in the comments, we can't pull it up yet, but Sean in the comments saying only 66 total players opting out. So think about that. That's less than a sort of training camp size roster of players. Chargers had no opt-outs as well. So
there were some pretty big names. I mean, Geno James, the right tackle, the Broncos. Juwan James. Sorry, my apologies.
Shaq Lawson.
Shaq Lawson is on the COVID list. He didn't opt out.
Oh, I thought he opted out.
No, he's on the COVID reserve list. Michael Pierce, the defensive tackle that the Vikings just signed to a big money deal this offseason, opted out. There was another defensive tackle, I believe, for the Steelers. I'm blanking on his name. CJ Mosley, obviously. And, I shot out a tweet from the Bills guys today, and I truly believed every word that I tweeted. And I said this: I 100% believe that the culture and the climate that have been built here in Buffalo by Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane led to Trey White's decision to play this year. Now, a lot of people are going to say...
We're getting comments.
Yeah, mine are back as well.
Oh, yeah, they're going to come through.
A lot of people are going to want to say that, oh, he did it because he wanted to be 1 year closer to his next contract, or, oh, he did it because he would have been making $150,000. Money this, money that. If you heard what he had to say yesterday, and you saw what he tweeted this morning about his grandfather-in-law dying of COVID and having a young son, you will understand that money has absolutely nothing to do with this decision. Trey White is a family man and a father, number one, first and foremost. And that's why I honestly 100% believe that the culture and climate here in Buffalo, led by Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, led to Trey's decision to play, because he came in here, he came into camp, he saw what they were all about. He understands that, yeah, we're a family here, and culture matters and family matters here. This organization makes players feel respected, heard, and most importantly, they make them feel safe. I've seen Jordan Poyer making comments like, I wonder if all the other teams are doing this. You've seen multiple NFL insiders saying that people are calling the Buffalo Bills to ask the Buffalo Bills how they're approaching situations. And this isn't the Pagulas, folks. If you see the way the Pagulas are running the Buffalo Sabres into the ground, you will know that this is 100% Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, because they are top-notch, grade A quality human beings, top-notch, grade A quality front office people and coaching staff. They are the reason why Stephon Diggs didn't question playing. Josh Allen never once questioned playing. Trey White got here and said, okay, I feel safe. I'm ready to roll. Trey White didn't opt out today. You know who we have to thank for that? Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. Because I wholeheartedly believe that if this was a different regime, a different coaching staff, I don't think Trey White's playing football this year. I really think it was that close. Look at C.J. Mosley. If C.J. Mosley was on the Buffalo Bills, I think he'd be playing football this year. If Michael Pierce was on the Buffalo Bills, I think he might be playing football this year. I really do. I honest to goodness believe that the culture of this organization and the mindset that these two guys bring in on a day in, day out basis is what led Trey White to make his decision. Are you in agreement with me, or are you seeing a different aspect of that?
No, I agree. I mean, we didn't even mention some of the other guys. Like Singletary had his little mini press conference today, and he said, I'm 100% confident in what the organization's doing, you know, McDermott being whatever, like all the people working in the facility trying to make the procedures and protocols to the best they can. And I'll throw Davion's super chat up here because it's now coming through. So thanks, Davion, again. But like you even heard Singletary say, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something to the effect of like, I have no issue and I have full confidence in the way they're handling things in the facility. And that gave him a level of comfort. You know, Singletary did make the comment that he felt like he wasn't in a position to opt out anyway, but he did go out of his way to praise the situation in the facility. So, you know, there was never any like worry from him once he kind of saw how things were being handled. We know just from a training aspect, the facility's top notch. So you would expect that the investment they put in from a physical training standpoint, that they would do the same when it came to the COVID situation. And it sounds like by all accounts, they did do that. So I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah. And I mean, if Trey White had opted out, there were a lot of people on Twitter freaking out. And don't get me wrong, like I would be upset by it, but I don't know. Part of me, and feel free in the comment section or you, Dave, to tell me you think I'm an idiot, but I honestly don't think talent is going to be as important this season as it has been in previous season. And what I'm going to say is like, this is going to be the weirdest season of football of all time. The absolute weirdest season of football of all time. And I honest to goodness think that like mental toughness and discipline and perseverance, and I think like culture and like that sort of like the mindset of the grind and all that stuff. And I really think that's going to play a bigger role this year than maybe in years past. And maybe I'm being naive here to think that, you know, talent isn't the most important thing in the world. But like, honest to goodness, I honestly believe if Trey White opted out, we would have made it work with Levi Wallace and Josh Norman and Akeem King and Dane Jackson, like, and Cam Lewis. Like, we would have made it work. Like, would it have been pretty? No. But we would have made it work, and we would have grinded, and we would have been right there in it until the end. Like, I don't think this, like, in a normal season, in a normal COVID, not if COVID didn't exist, losing Trey White, I'd say to myself, like, man, that's really like a dent in our season. But in like a COVID season, I sort of think that, like, just maybe, like for once, talent isn't the most important thing in the world, and there might be more important factors to it, like mindset.
There's more mindset's a good way to say it. Mental toughness. I mean, think about like all of us, right? Me, you, probably the viewers. You know, we've been dealing with like whether it's working from home or not being able to even work at our jobs or whatever it may be, right? This whole last several months, like dating back really since the beginning to middle of March, we're talking about going on 5 months now. A majority of the country has been either stuck or they're on the front lines kind of helping, whether it's from the medical standpoint or food delivery, whatever it is. Everyone's been kind of stretched to the point that their mental toughness has really been kind of what's been tested, right, over the last several months. And I think you can kind of translate that probably into how this season is going to play out. The mental aspect, the mental toughness, the discipline that people are going to have, coaches, players, is going to be even more important this year. When we talked to Reed Ferguson about a month ago, and we talked about, can you tell when there are teams you're playing against that are like undisciplined or disorganized or whatever? And he said, yeah. And I think those teams are going to be, talent aside, those teams are probably going to struggle maybe a bit more than they would. Now, talent's still going to overcome some of that. But a team like the Bills, where there's talent plus the mental toughness and the constant preaching of fundamentals and the constant preaching of process, you have to like their situation from a preparedness standpoint in an environment like this and in a season like this. So I'm with you. I think the mental aspect is going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah, and Sean comments like, whoa, don't go crazy now. No trade changes a lot for this defense. Don't get me wrong. I don't disagree with you, but I think like the way I'm looking at it, our front four is our defensive line is better. Even with the loss of Star Lotulelei, they're better. Linebackers are what they are. Take a little bit of a dent with the loss of Lorenzo Alexander, but they still got Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano. The safeties are absolutely incredible with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. And I look at the Jets defense last year, and a lot of people gave me some heat for this on Twitter. They're like, oh, well, they weren't a top 10 pass defense. But, with guys like Marcus May and Jamal Adams, up the middle, the Jets had a top 10 defense statistically last year. Were they the best defense in the world? Did they look like a top 10 defense? Probably not. But statistically, they were a top 10 defense. And the Bills defense without Trey White is still talent-wise probably better than the Jets defense was last year on paper. And I think we're kind of looking at this from the wrong perspective. We're all like, oh, losing Trey White hurts the defense. Losing Trey White hurts the defense. My focus and my concern this season isn't the defense, Trey White or no Trey White. That's the wrong perspective. My concern is the offense. It's Josh Allen. Because the way I look at this, if Josh Allen plateaus and just plays the same as he did last year, then you have to worry about the defense because you're crossing your fingers and you're hoping that the defense is just as good as it was last year to sneak you into the playoffs. If Josh Allen takes the next step, you hope the defense is still elite because then you can go on a run once you get to the playoffs. The playoffs will be a shoo-in. And you hope you can go on a run once you get to the playoffs, win a game or two. But if Josh Allen doesn't take one step, but maybe pulls a Lamar Jackson and takes 2 steps, who cares what the defense does? Who cares? Because Josh Allen is going to put up points. And if our offense with Stephon Diggs and John Brown and Cole Beasley and Dawson Knox and Devin Singletary and Zach Moss and a mostly returning offensive line, if Josh Allen takes not 1 step, but 2 steps, our defense could fall off 10 teams and be a top 15 defense, and we'd still be Super Bowl contenders. It's all about offense in the NFL, folks. Defense will only get you so far. Defense is nice to have in the playoffs, but at the end of the day, like, who gives a shit how the defense plays? Because if Josh Allen doesn't take 1 or 2 steps, we're back to the drawing board at quarterback. So to me, my concern this year, as much as I love Trey White, the defense is just a bonus for me this year. I want to see it from the offense.
Yeah, I mean, I made this comment on Twitter once, not after today's comment from Trey White, but after yesterday's press conference where he was talking about how he still had to make a decision. And my takeaway was like, look, whatever he decides to do, I respect it. Fine. He's going to do what he needs to do, the best, thing for his family. But at the end of the day, the team goals that the Bills are trying to achieve this year are not going to happen unless the offense like meets the defense halfway or comes somewhat close to what the defense did last year, right? So the defense is still going to be good, but if the offense doesn't hold up its end of the bargain, we're going to be in another situation where we might be either not in the playoffs or one and done, because the schedule is tougher this year. And although the division might on the surface seem easier, the totality of the schedule is harder this year. I don't think there's any way to argue against that. You play the Niners, you play the Chiefs, like you play the entire NFC West, right? So you play the AFC West, so you got to play the Chargers, and you got to play a Raiders team that could be good. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is the offense really needs to step up, and we analyze this like every which way we possibly could, like points per game, Josh Allen, whatever you want to say. That's the crux of this season at the end of the day. So what's nice about Trey not opting out is it's just one less variable in the mix now with like, okay, like if Trey had opted out, maybe the defense sags a little and then like you even need more from the offense. But now you've kind of like kept the scales kind of the same on that side of the ball. And now it's just really up to the offense. So that's kind of how I see it. I'm with you. It's all about the offense in 2020.
Steven, I'm winning some people back. I'm winning people back slowly but surely. Steven says I have a good point. Steven's the first person to say I've had a good point in about 2 weeks now. Sean comments, Super Bowl goes through Kansas City. Josh can score versus that defense. You need a Trey White to limit the Kansas City offense. I don't know if Josh Allen can score versus that defense. I want Josh Allen to score against that defense. You know what I want more than Trey White? Do you know what I want more than Trey White there to limit Kansas City's offense? I want Josh Allen to outduel Patrick Mahomes and score more points than Patrick Mahomes. Like I get that. Like now we're talking in the abstract, and in reality, it's nicer to have Trey White there for the reality of the situation. But in the abstract, if Trey White didn't play, maybe that forces Josh Allen to have to take 2 steps instead of 1 and beat teams like Kansas City in these shootouts. Because we've seen what the Buffalo Bills do in the third quarter when they have a lead. We see what the Bills do when they score a touchdown and go up. They sit on the football. Mm-hmm. I'm happy Trey White's there, but part of me thinks if Trey White wasn't there, maybe that forces Josh Allen, trial by fire, to take 2 steps instead of 1. I'm confident he can take the step. I really want him to take the 2 steps, but I mean, that's all here and there because I'm really happy that Trey White is coming back. Because at the end of the day, Sean, I am with you. I really think that I really think that he does play a key role in getting this team over the hump and beating those things. War Code Red says talent with habits.
Yeah, I think he's getting back to he's getting back to the point we were making earlier around like the talent and the mental.
Yeah, and
talent with habits is like the perfect combination.
Have you right? and that's the DNA that they're bringing into this locker room. Did you happen to see Brandon Beane's interview with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks on NFL Network?
I caught some of it. I didn't catch all of it. I was working at the same time, so I caught bits and pieces.
The clip that I saw was simply orgasmic. Like that's the only way to describe it. That is the only way to describe it. You're going to lose some
people again after that.
So the comment, they asked him a story or whatever. They asked him to like share a story. And I don't know if this was when his time in Buffalo or if this was in his time in Carolina, because I only saw the clip. I didn't see the full interview. And he said that, the sort of like season guide, like the season preview people would always come around and ask them questions to put into the season guide, the season preview. And they would always ask the same generic questions to every single person. And they asked Sean McDermott a ton of questions and they asked Brandon Beane a ton of questions. And the same generic question that they asked both of them, and I'll put Joshua's super chat up there. Thank you, Joshua. Appreciate it. We'll get there when I'm done with this thought here. The question was, what are you most proud of? And they asked the question to Sean McDermott and they asked the question to Brandon Beane, but they had no idea that they had asked the question to both of them. And they had never discussed this with each other before. And, one day they were just shooting the shit and they realized that the same question was asked to both of them, or someone brought up to them and said, "Hey, look, do you guys realize you answered the question exactly the same?" And their response, it really was orgasmic. You know what his response was? His response was, we didn't know anybody. Like we didn't have an in the National Football League. We earned our way here. Brandon Beane started off in the marketing department. Sean McDermott started out as like a scouting volunteer. They freaking grinded to get to the positions they're in. They earned it. And that's the sort of mindset that they're bringing to Buffalo. He mentioned guys like Levi Wallace and earning it. And even the top guys who are here understand that they need to have good habits or they're not going to go very far on this football team. Stephon Diggs has been in front of the Buffalo media for one day, and already the word process is spewing out of his mouth. I mean, come on. So I don't know how other way to say it other than I love these two dudes and I absolutely love the mindset they're bringing, because not only are they bringing in talented football players like Trey White and Tremaine Edmonds and Deion Dawkins and Matt Milano and Josh Allen, but they're bringing guys who are wired the right way. And I think that's going to be what sets this team apart over the course of the next decade.
All right, so we'll get to Joshua's comment here. Difference, I think, is if we didn't have Trey, we would need 26, 27 points a game. With Trey, 23 points a game will be enough. We've got Jason in the comments saying we need to score 28 points a game, no more 18 to 20. We got to score more points this year for sure, says Davion. Schedule says so. So is this maybe like an over expectation, 26-27, or do you think like that's legit? Because like the Ravens scored 33 points a game last year, and that was like an anomaly for being the top scoring offense in the league.
Yeah.
Usually teams aren't over 30 points a game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on. I think if the Buffalo Bills average 27, 28 points a game with Trey White on their roster, we're looking at a double-digit win football team, 11-12 win football team. I think if they score 23 points a game, with Trey White, we're looking at a team that's going to battle for like 9-10 wins. But I mentioned a million times this year that's okay, because the AFC East sucks and our schedule is really hard. So 9-10 wins will probably win you the AFC East in like a home playoff game. Like that's not a dent on the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills could win 9 games this year and have a better season they did last year, winning 10, because 9 wins would probably win us the AFC East and get us a home playoff game. So I'm totally with Josh on that point. Like, if we're scoring 27, 28 points a game without Trey, it's probably like if we were scoring 23 points a game, with Trey.
Yeah, Adam says our defense keeps us in games. 100% correct. Our offense has to take the next step to win the AFC East. Yeah, I mean, I kind of went through the numbers from 2019. The 23.5 points a game gets you to the top half in the league. But you get an extra field goal in there, and that's now you're up to 26, almost 27 points in a game. With our defense, you're right. I think we have the capability to win 11, 12 games. But again, the thing I'll just caution is that we scored 19 points a game last year against some pretty bad teams and some pretty bad defenses. So that offense really has to step it up this year. You're getting a nice orgasmic "I'm dead" here from AB Peg. So I think you've used that word twice already on the
Josh
show.
said, "Oh my God, did you disagree with me?" What? Josh, we've disagreed on one thing, man. We've disagreed on one thing. Chris Janicki asked if we could trade Robert Foster to the Dolphins. I don't want us to trade Robert Foster to the Dolphins.
No, not in division.
I like Robert Foster, but I don't want to see him twice a year. Like, who they still have? They still have Jakeem Grant, Preston Williams, and Devontae Parker. I think they'll be fine. They got 3 solid guys. Like they were set to run the spread this year. Like they really were, with Chan Gailey coming in there and Matt Breida. Like they were really sent to run the spread. I think you could see a lot of them utilizing Mike Gesicki maybe as a slot receiver, because Chan Gailey sucks with tight ends. So I think that's something you could see utilized this year. So
Jakeem Grant can play a similar role that Albert Wilson would have played as well. And Alan Hearns, nice season a couple years ago with Jacksonville, but like it's not like it's Devontae Parker or Preston Williams opting out. So I also don't think the Bills would trade within the division a guy that they've kept around trying to kind of develop for the last couple of years. So we'll see on that.
Yeah. And I saw someone previously in the comment section, they started mentioning the running backs, and I kind of want to pivot to a discussion today on Brian Daboll a little bit, because I think that's a name that we haven't really said a lot this offseason, which is weird, because it's a name that we said a lot.
Yeah, he was a toast of the town. He was a toast of the town last season.
It's almost like the offseason comes around and we add all these weapons and we just assume it'll get better. But, I was having a conversation this week over on the Daily Buffalo with a couple of people over there. One of our buddies, Mr. Fabili. I do a lot of work over there for the Daily Buffalo. Check it out. If you have a chance, it's our sister network. I'm trying to grow it down there, working some new podcasts. But that aside, we started talking about Brian Daboll, and it's sort of, we're spitballing back and forth, and we were having a conversation about the running backs. And I think this goes towards the whole points per game conversation. This goes to the taking the foot off the gas situation. I'm going to be really disappointed this season if we don't utilize the running backs.
Yeah, they're mad too. They're mad too if we don't utilize the running backs.
Yeah, the dogs are going to be mad too. For those we didn't mention this at the top of the show, but my fiance is a professional, like an adult, has a job. So I had to lock the dogs here in the studio. I call it a studio. It's our guest bedroom with me for today's show. So maybe they'll make an appearance at the end. So I do apologize for that. But they're mad at Brian Daboll too, because how many times last year did we get past the 50-yard line? They're just so upset. And come here. How many times did we get inside the 50-yard line and just absolutely stall out? Like, just couldn't even get in field goal range, had to punt or had to settle for a field goal, like all of these things. And, we're talking about trying to close out a game and managing the football and managing possessions. And they were so one-dimensional. They were utilizing Frank Gore like he was Mike Tolbert. Mm-hmm. And that's not something I want to see. We talk about Josh Allen's completion percentage. We had a running back last year in TJ Yeldon who caught 59 balls the year before. He barely played. Mm-hmm. He was barely utilized as a receiver. Is that on Josh Allen or is that on Brian Daboll? Devin Singletary showed that he was a factor back. Yet we were still handing the ball off to Frank Gore an insane amount. I read article after article this year from Roto World saying that they're predicting the Buffalo Bills are going to utilize Frank Gore like they use, or Zach Moss like they use Frank Gore. That would be a massive mistake. If Devin Singletary is running the rock like he did last year, I want to see him start the year with 80% of the touches. Like, we shouldn't be playing games starting off the season against the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins, two division teams, two players who were hurt a lot by the opting out, two teams that are having massive roster rollout in a non-preseason COVID season. We better take it to those two teams. And by take it, I mean hand the ball to Devin Singletary, let him work, and then let Josh Allen feed off of that.
Yep.
We better not use Zach Moss like we used Frank Gore last year, because guess what? He's better than Frank Gore, at least at Frank Gore's advanced age. We use Frank Gore like Mike Tolbert. I don't want to see Zach Moss used like Mike Tolbert. I want to see TJ Yeldon play, and I want to see Josh Allen dump the football off to his running backs every once in a while. I don't need to see him turn into Derek Carr. But it was a weapon last year when our offense was struggling that we weren't even trying to utilize.
Yep.
So is that Josh Allen being incompetent, or is that Brian Daboll just like not opening up the playbook? Like, what's going on? And part of me really thinks it's Brian Daboll.
Well, I mean that there's some of that's pretty evident, right? Because we've talked about this before. We're not really a screen team. We barely use the screen game, which is like getting the running backs involved in the passing game. Obviously, we barely use the backs out of the backfield in the passing game. To the extent that we did, it was pretty much just the backs going out to the flat as like a safety valve. It wasn't really necessarily a situation where we were like trying to get the backs the ball by design. It was more of a safety valve thing. And Josh Allen made a couple of those throws to the sideline last year, like to Frank Gore, even I think on a few. But then you see when it happens and we do utilize the guy like Singletary in the passing game. I mean, look at that Eagles game. That was one of Josh Allen. It was a nice, easy throw for him. Singletary did all the work, did the rest of the work. So to me, it's more on Daboll, right? I mean, Josh Allen, sure, he'll use his safety valves more, or he claims he's going to kind of be a little bit more diligent with the ball. But if your idea of getting the backs involved in the passing game is just running them out to the flat as a safety valve and not really actually having them run some kind of route, some kind of Y route or arrow route, like we used to see with Chan Gailey do with Fred Jackson and CJ Spiller, then we're really not doing them a service in the passing game. We're doing them a disservice by not utilizing some of their strengths. And honestly, these are some of the plays that could help us get more efficient, like once we cross over the 50, right? Keep the defense guessing. And to be honest with you, it's a little frustrating, right? Because I see other teams across the league utilize their backs in the passing game, whether it's through screens or otherwise,
Mhm.
And the Bills just don't ever do it. And to me, that's that's play calling mostly.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, go back and watch some of the games from last year and see how many times there was an actual designed route being run by the running back out of the backfield other than them just going out into the flat for a dump off. You won't see it. You won't see it too often.
And Josh Allen pads a lot of the statistics. And statistically, we were a great running team. Yeah, Josh Allen padded a lot of that. And we have a comment here. Andrew Miller says Singletary will have 80% of the touches with rookies being brought in slowly because of the offseason. I want to agree with you, but part of me thinks that Brian Dable might just start treating TJ Yeldon like Frank Gore and trying to run TJ Yeldon up the middle. Like, part of me thinks that we might see that. And, CR says the key is not to overlook any of the opponents. That's what I'm trying to get at. Instead of sitting there and trying to be pretty with the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins the first 2 weeks of the season, when they're sort of trying to get their act together and trying to, grow as a cohesive unit, smash them in the mouth and completely dominate them in the trenches and make them beg for freaking mercy on the ground, and then utilize that to go over top in the passing game, utilizing things like play action and whatnot.
Yeah, there's a comment. I can't bring it up. It didn't make its way to my screen yet, but someone's asking me if this is my only hat. And I will say it's not my only hat, but I don't know if my head's gotten bigger. But like the other couple hats I have are a little tight right now. So this one's a snapback, so I can adjust the the size. The other ones I have are fitted. So for now, this will be the only hat I can wear that actually fits my head. And I don't even really have a big head, but hey, that's what it is. So
and I'm totally with Sean Munley here. Dable has to find a way to utilize matchup problems, Knox specifically. I'm totally in agreement, because when you have guys on the outside like Diggs and Brown, that's going to open up so much for Dawson Knox, Cole Beasley, and the running backs. All of the attention is going to be on the speed on the outside and the actual legitimate perimeter receivers that we have. And I'm not saying don't throw the ball to those guys, use them as decoys on every down. But the fact that so much of the attention is going to be there is going to open up so much over the middle of the football field for Beasley and Knox, and so much underneath for Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. But if we're treating Zach Moss like we did Frank Gore, he's not going to be getting the ball underneath. If we're treating Devin Singletary like we treated Devin Singletary last year, he's not getting the ball thrown to him enough. Throw the ball to the running back. You did it in New England, Brian Dable. You've seen it be done. You know it's possible. Do it.
And Josh also wants to know what hat you're wearing, Steve. So
this is a Buffalo Bison's hat. Support your local minor league baseball team. Support your local university. This is my Jeremy Harris. And support your local brewery. This is my kilt lifter. If you guys ever make it out to Arizona, this is the number one beer in Arizona. Four Peaks Kilt Lifter. It is very good. I highly suggest it. It gets you nice and what's the word I'm looking for? Nice and buzzed after about 2 or 3 of them.
So I know we were talking about there was a comment I just put up about using both backs can CR says both backs can catch the ball. We need to incorporate that more. I agree.
Of course we do. Do you think we're going to see 2 backs in the backfield this year? I don't.
No, I don't. I really don't, because
I don't think we'll see one damn time.
No, that may be okay, but I think what you need to do is to not to telegraph your game plan or your approach just based on which back you had in the game, which was pretty evident last year when Frank Gore was in the game, what you were going to be doing. So the fact that Zach Moss does bring does bring some receiving ability as well, and Devin Singletary showed he could last year. This is where I kind of came back to some of the philosophy stuff we talked about earlier in the offseason. Like, you probably are going to give Devin Singletary the early load in the season. I agree with that comment, but I also want it to get to a point where the 2 of them are almost interchangeable, and that makes the offense a little bit more unpredictable, because when Gore was on the field versus Singletary, it was a clear difference in sort of what we were going to be able to do. Not saying that we were always just going to run it up the middle for 2 yards, or he was only in there to pass protect, but there was limitations to what you could do with the personnel. So my thought is, if those backs become interchangeable as the season wears on, then you can be a little bit more unpredictable and, utilize some of that to your advantage. But the question remains if Dayball will do that. We will see.
Yeah. Brian says late to party. That's all right. You haven't missed much. Only that Trey White is opting in, baby.
Heather says happy
National IPA Day? Because if so, I feel guilty, because this is not an IPA. I'm usually an IPA guy, I thought yesterday was National IPA Day. This is a Scottish Amber
No,
Ale.
she's
And
right. First
she-
Thursday in August. Yeah, first Thursday in August. National
Sorry,
IPA Day.
I'm an IPA guy, and I failed my people.
Ugh, that's
I see a bunch of people talk about, screen passes. Sean Mundley said seams and screens. Like, I'm all for it, but I just don't know if Brian Daboll has those creative juices. Like, I've seen him do some great creative, like, trick play things, and I've seen him do some great things with Isaiah McKenzie. I'm not doubting his acumen. He draws up some some good plays, but for some reason, those are the two things that he seems to really struggle with. Hey, you want to come here?
So this must be the $1 million question then. Is your dog available for guest spots on podcasts? I don't know if this is Max or Jeremy. I'm guessing it's Jeremy, if I had to guess. But I don't know. We'll see.
This is Jenny.
Richard, you're right. I don't think I need a haircut though. I have like no hair to begin with, so it's really just my head.
The show is going off the rails real quick. She's actually there's actually 2 dogs in here, but one of them's actually well behaved, and you don't know that she exists. This is the one that's struggling. But
well, what do you think about this comment then? To get the show back on the rails here, our guards are too unathletic to run screens. Spain is like a pure run blocker.
So maybe this is something to look forward to, because if anyone has seen pictures of Quentin Spain this offseason, he has slimmed down. I was questioning in our BF group chat if maybe he was too skinny. And maybe it's because Brian Daboll said, dude, I want to run some more screens next year. Maybe he wants to run some more things. Christianity says, I read Daboll was big on using screens when he was OC at Alabama. Yes, he was.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he was. So maybe Brian Daboll wants to get back to that. Maybe when they signed Quentin Spain to that extension, they said to him, slim down, bro, because we're going to be running some screens this year. So that's actually really, really interesting. And it'll be really interesting to see. I haven't had a chance to go and dig deep what Brian Winter's history running screens is. I know Mitch Morse can pull. I know Deion Dawkins can pull. Quentin Spain seems to have slimmed down. So it'll be really interesting. Cody Ford is a rather athletic right tackle. It'll be really interesting to see what Brian Winters can contribute to that as well. And maybe we see a new look Bills offensive line next season.
Yeah, I was just going to mention I was just going to mention about Morse, right? Like, he was a great center when we signed him. He was one of the top centers available, but he was known more as an athletic type of center that fit well in Andy Reid's system, obviously with the Chiefs. So, I don't know. Chris makes the comment that, he read Brian Winters is good at pulling, setting up screens for runners. So we'll have to take a closer look into that. Feliciano wasn't bad at that. Obviously, and Dawkins is athletic forward. Maybe that's something that could settle him down a bit, right? And get him into the flow of games a bit more, give him some confidence running downhill as opposed to guys pushing back on him instead. So I don't know. This comes down to the trust you have in Brian Daboll. And yes, maybe he did utilize screens at Alabama, but at the end of the day, if you look at his track record coordinating an NFL offense, he hasn't had a good track record from a points per game standpoint at any stint he had. Now, in his defense, I will say that this is probably one of the best offensive units, if not the best, that he's had a chance to coordinate in his career as an NFL offensive coordinator. I mean, obviously he had time with Brady, but that wasn't as offensive coordinator. So we'll see if this becomes like a late blooming situation for Brian Daboll. I think you made the point of is it play calling or is it Josh Allen execution?
Mm-hmm.
Brian Daboll is very polarizing figure last offseason. So as this season starts, and if we start out slowly and it's evident that Josh Allen is kind of doing what he can do, then this arrow is going to point back at Brian Daboll eventually, and it's going to be tough for him to kind of avoid that. So
yeah, I saw a comment in the comment section with the air raid too that we just had up there. I haven't seen that, but it definitely is. The air raid is a concept that the Buffalo Bills. Sorry, this is what I get for. I tried to find a guest host tonight because I knew this would happen, but failed to do that. Thanks, Jeremy, in the comments section. Too afraid to come on video. Come on. But we talked about the air raid offense a little bit, and the Bills actually ran a lot of air raid concepts Josh Allen's rookie year towards the back half of the year when the offensive line was really struggling. And with guys like Diggs and Brown, it's definitely back on the table because they have that speed to get down the field. And they got guys like Gabe Davis who know how to get down the field really well as well. But I point to Cleveland. Cleveland was really efficient running things like 12 personnel and 11 personnel and doing very traditional things with Baker Mayfield in his rookie season. They tried to bring in Todd Monken and they tried to install air raid concepts, and it absolutely blew up in their face. I love Josh Allen, but at the end of the day, I think that he can run air raid in small packages. Like you can have air raid plays in your playbook, but to make that the staple of your offense, I just don't know if that's something Josh Allen's capable of. 12 personnel, 11 personnel, running the ball. Somebody mentioned Zach Moss needs to loosen them up for Devin Singletary. Get them in a flow. Let Josh Allen play action. I remember Josh Allen's bowl game years ago, the Idaho Potato Bowl. The announcers were getting their pants wet every time. Josh Allen, play action. He threw a beauty right down the seam to like Tanner Gentry for a touchdown. He really does well off of play actions. And if he can fix that deep ball, those are the kind of things you're going to want to utilize, I think, more so than the air raid for Josh Allen. But that being said, you could still have the concepts. I just don't think it should be the full, breadth of your offense.
Yeah, and if Daboll wants to show that he's adaptable to either to teams or even within a game itself, then he'll know when to press the right buttons on when to utilize things like that, when to utilize spread, when to utilize power, 12 and 11 personnel. So that's where it gets back to the whole, people have an issue with, do the people have an issue with his play calling, or do people have an issue with his game sequencing? And for me, it's more the sequencing, because I think he, like you said in the past, he does have some good plays that he busts out every once in a while, but it's just the way, the timing and the flow. Look at that Houston game, the playoff game, right? That first drive was a super creative drive, right? Got Josh Allen out on the edge, pulling. That was one example where our O-line was pulling, and he got that huge run on the first. It was I think it was the first play of the game, and went down. We marched down the field and had that super creative play where Brown threw him the touchdown. And then what happened after that? Not a lot of creativity after that, in my mind. So it's he comes out kind of with this script where he's had time to kind of show that creativity, but during the games, in game, is where I want to see it this year, where he's able to kind of keep that foot on the pedal, show some ability to make adjustments. And I just didn't see that enough from him last year. Now, some of that's on Josh too, on execution, but it's a lot on Daboll as well.
Yeah, you see, Anthony John making a comment here. First play of the season is a bomb to Diggs for the touchdown. I think back to the first game Matt Barkley started, but guess what? That wasn't just a 5-receiver shotgun sort of play. That was a play action, bomb to Foster. So I can easily see the first play of the season being a deep bomb. But it's not just going to be Josh Allen dropping back and launching it down the field. It'll be out of the play action. I can almost guarantee it. I can almost guarantee it. So I'm with you guys, and that's why I'm just saying I would steer away from air raid. But yeah, could you imagine how Bills Mafia would react? First play, Josh Allen fakes a handoff to Devin Singletary, hits Stephon Diggs in stride for a 75-yard touchdown.
God, I'll take 3 shots in a row on camera live if that happens.
All right, so let's start fielding questions and topics from not from the peanut gallery, which are my dogs, but from the comment section. And the first one I like here is from Eric Johnson. And remember, you guys can start lighting up the comment section with your takes, your comments, your questions. Always remember that super chatters do pop up in big, bold, highlighted letters, and they do get priority. But we're going to start with Eric's comment here. I feel like we are going to see White and Norman light up the field. And I really agree with this. I mean, we've had a number of conversations this offseason. Number one, Trey White getting to go up and practice every single day against Stephon Diggs. Well, guess what? Josh Norman gets to go up every single day in practice against John Brown. And not to mention, having Trey White across from Josh Norman takes the pressure off of Josh Norman from having to be the guy. And maybe the ball gets thrown more at Josh Norman. And Josh Norman is covering lesser receivers, the number 2. And if he can get back in that Sean McDermott flow, he's going to be in a position a lot to make plays. I can easily see Josh Norman coming in here and falling flat in his face. but I can almost just as easily picture Josh Norman coming in here and maybe resurrecting 65, 70% of his 2015 season, which I'll take in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't think it's reasonable to think he's going to be back to 2015 form just based on age and we're so far removed from that. Just like the same thing about Cam Newton, people say about Cam Newton, it's not reasonable to expect him to return to that form, but it is reasonable to expect him to split some of that difference to where he was with Washington, where he was pretty abysmal, to where he was in 2015. And I would be totally happy with that because you know why? Even if he is 60 to 70% of what he was in Carolina, even 50 to 60% in that 2015, he's still probably better than Levi Wallace. And if not, if anything, it'll at least push Levi Wallace to be better, especially in training camp. Josh Norman's going to be the starting cornerback number 2. I firmly believe that when season opens. And I think someone made this comment way earlier, but I want to bring it back up, is that he brings like an attitude and a swagger to that defense that I don't think Levi Wallace brings on the opposite side of Trey White. Trey White's swagger is more of like the I don't want to say it's like funny, but it's like he brings more of like a lighthearted sort of attitude to the field where you never feel like he's getting like too stressed out. And Josh Norman brings a different style, and it's more of like that kind of like John Feliciano swagger, like that attitude and like I'm going to get up in your face type of attitude. So I think between White's sort of free and like I'm not saying comical, but it's not, but it's like it's free and kind of lighthearted style and just like not letting things bother him, loose, to Norman's attitude. Loose. Yeah. It's a great combination to have between those two guys. And I think they're going to be great together. I really do. I think
Carmen commented, Josh Norman sounded stoked today in his presser. You want to know why Josh Norman said he came to Buffalo? He said he came to Buffalo to win the Super Bowl. When's the last time someone came here and said that and like was actually serious? Like that.
Yeah, and this is actually a serious comment, right? It's not like I'm coming here because I want. It's not like that Michael Jordan comment he made on The Last Dance where he was like, I'm coming here to hopefully like turn around this organization and bring a championship to Chicago. Like he's legitimately coming here to a contending team because he wants to win a championship. He made the comment like money doesn't matter at this stage. Like I've been there, done that. Like he wants to win, and he could have gone to other teams. Like you're telling me that Kansas City wouldn't have wanted him. You're telling me that Baltimore wouldn't have wanted him just as like a guy, but like I think he feels it as it's a great combination of a championship caliber team and a team where he's going to be able to contribute. So to me, that checks both boxes for what he probably wants in his career at this point. He wants to win that championship, but he also wants to show that he still has it. And there's a pride factor there too, that although he didn't mention it, I'm sure with a kind of like guy that Josh Norman is, where he's super ultra competitive, that's also weighing on his mind.
Got a question here from Joshua. He said, who's your favorite Bill of all time? This is a really tough question for me because like I always root for the underdog story. So some of my favorite players of all time are the likes of George Wilson, Marcus Easley. I'm a big fan of Marcus Easley. Fred Jackson. I'm torn between Fred Jackson and Eric Moulds right now. And I'm going to go with Fred Jackson. I'd say Fred Jackson is my favorite Buffalo Bill of all time. How about yourself?
So my favorite is Eric Moulds. I was a huge Eric Moulds fan as a kid. I was like really just getting to the point in my age where I was able to really like comprehend and recall football when Eric Moulds was kind of coming up. I was a little bit young during like the Super Bowl years. So it was like kind of like right after that when I started to recall and remember things that Eric Moulds was really the guy. And you look back at some of the quarterbacks that he played with in his time, obviously, couple years there with Rob Johnson, Flutie. He had Bledsoe. He had like a revolving door at quarterbacks, and he's still the only guy in Bill's history to have 100 receptions in a single season. And by the way, I believe still has a playoff record for receiving yards in a game. Someone can fact check me on that, but I'm fairly certain he has a playoff record for receiving yards in a game against the Dolphins. So Eric Moulds is the man. Honestly, like totally kind of gets glossed over, honestly, in a way. But he's my favorite of all time.
Yeah, Joshua says Fred Smirlis. That's my dad's favorite player. I remember, oh gosh, about 5-6 years ago, I got him a Fred Smirlis jersey for Christmas. He still wears it like all the time. So it's like the best gift I ever got him. Steven Campione says, gotta say Thurman Thomas. I think Thurman Thomas. I think if I grew up in a different era, Bruce or Thurman would be up there. Someone mentioned Steve Tasker. I think if I grew up in a different era, these guys probably would be higher on my list. But I mean, you can't go. There's so many. Someone mentioned Aaron Williams up there. I loved Aaron Williams in his time here in Buffalo. No one's even mentioned Kyle Williams yet. Just the number of guys who have come through.
Terence McGee's up there for me too, man.
Terence McGee.
Terence McGee was electric. Return man, great corner, super fast, just could glide. He had some of my favorite plays ever. Believe in that Cincinnati game one year, he had a kick return touchdown and an interception return touchdown in the same game, which was pretty awesome.
London Fletcher, Aaron Schobel.
This is our era now.
Reuben Brown. There was just Stevie Johnson's been mentioned. Kurt Schultz. Him and Henry Jones.
Henry Jones and him were a duo, man. I mean, Henry Jones is second year in the league, which was like the year, I believe it was the 91 season. It was the Oilers playoff game. Dude had like 8 interceptions for like 260 something return yards that year, or something crazy like that.
Everyone always talks about Winfield and everyone always talks about Nate Clements, but you guys remember Ken Irvin? I loved Ken Irvin back in the day.
Ken Irvin was good. How about Nate Odoms? He was a little bit older for you, maybe, but that was Super Bowl year's corner. Dude, Peerless Price. I will say, Peerless Price, when we had him with Molds that first year with Bledsoe, oh my gosh, man, that duo was awesome. I mean, that was just like one of the best duos we ever had, honestly.
I used to love David Nelson. Just that underdog slot receiver who's here for like a year and a half.
You're gonna say Donald Jones next too, right?
Brandon Riley.
Oh my god.
Let's talk about preseason MVPs next. Is what we should talk about.
You think about some of the those years we had. You think about some of those years Lee Evans is also a personal favorite of mine, by the way. He had like that one monster year with JP. You think about some of the free agents too that we used to bring in, and how stoked we were to get guys like Marcus Stroud as a free agent. Like, you remember those times where we what Mario Williams, that was like winning the lottery for the Bills, was like signing a free agent like Mario Williams. It would never happen. But now it's kind of like, hey, people want to come here, man. Kind of. So
Davion says, remember Antoine Smith?
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
Interesting comment here from Sean Munley. We drafted David Nelson 2.0. I'm assuming he's referring to Isaiah Hodgins. I think Isaiah Hodgins is better. David Nelson was pretty thin. Isaiah Hodgins, I think, has got a little thicker of a frame. I also think that his catch point, his catch radius, his go up and get it is a little more aggressive than maybe, say, a David Nelson's.
Nelson reminded me more of like a Jordan Matthews to me.
Yeah.
I think that's a better, I don't know what NFL comp you have for Hodgins, but I would see David Nelson more like Jordan Matthews, where I see a Hodgins maybe is more like a, I don't even know. That's a good question. I wonder who I would compare him to, but pretty sure we traded for. Yeah, we might have traded for him, Chris. Actually, you might be right. I thought we signed him, but you might be right. We might have traded for him. Travis Henry. Travis Henry's another one. 2 or 3 great years.
I wonder who was the first person in Bills Mafia to make that comp. Do you know who it was, Dave?
Yeah, I have a feeling it's the man with the dogs sitting over there to my left.
Came straight here from this dog who's just struggling. She is on the struggle bus tonight. She has massive anxiety, so I do apologize for her tonight.
You just gotta hold her, man.
I've been trying to. She keeps withering on my arms and then barking. But
okay, yeah, we treated. Okay, so either way, still, Stroud was always a.
We got them back by trading Darius to Jacksonville.
Oh God.
All
right. So what's next? I'm a little behind on the comments, so maybe
before we head out tonight too, I also want to mention that this came in the mail from China. And for those of you who are looking to get your hands on
The
one,
dog doesn't like it.
I think they're just excited. For those of you who are looking to get your hands on one of these Josh Allen Buffalo Braves jerseys, I am not one of the people on Twitter selling them, but I am here to tell you you can get them. I am here to tell you you can get them for about half the price. It's called dhgate.com. It's a Chinese website. You'll be waiting about 6 months. I ordered mine in March, but you will get it, and it is worth it. $35 I paid for that thing, so I'm pretty pumped. I got this Jeremy Harris from there as well. dhgate.com for those of you looking for some cheap swag that will take 8 months to deliver because it's coming from China. But for those of you who are balling on a budget like me, check it out. I'm going to get them to sponsor our vidcast.
They probably already have all of our information anyway, right? Probably already know.
They knew where I lived before I even
TikTok.
plugged it into the address.
They knew everything.
They actually
you wanted
read my
already.
mind and just sent it to me and charged my credit card. I didn't even order it.
Is COVID included with that jersey?
That's what I don't you worry. I disinfected this. I'm not going to let them get me.
Yeah, you want to watch that a couple times. All right, so my comments are still lagging behind. So do we have any other good questions?
A lot of
there?
Travis Henry talk. Somebody mentioned earlier Evan Bain. And I want to talk about Evan Bain a little bit because we have been talking about the offensive line a little bit, and it's sort of just like reacting as we go. Like John Feliciano gets hurt. So I wrote an article for Buffalo Fanatics talking about sort of, how do we replace John Feliciano? And it was Darrell Williams. It was Spencer Long. I mentioned Evan Bain. Then they go along and they sign Ike Butker. And I talk about, kicking Evan Bain or Spencer Long to center, and maybe Evan Bain isn't like. Well, then they go and they cut Spencer Long. I really think that we're sleeping on Evan Bain. The guy has played a lot. He was a 4th-round pick, just like John Feliciano. So I think it's a guy that Bobby Johnson sees that he can work with and he can mold a little bit, maybe resurrect his career. He started a ton at center. He started a ton at right guard. I think that there's something to be said about development. And I think Spencer Long getting cut had a lot to do with the fact that Ike Butker has been on this roster for 2 years. I mean, how many times have we talked about cutting linemen and not included a guy who's been on a roster for 2 years, Ike Butker, on our list? I think the Buffalo Bills wanted to clear space for Ike Butker with that Spencer Long move as well. So whether it's Butker, whether it's Bates, whether it's Bain, I really do think that maybe we're sleeping on some of these guys at the bottom half, the offensive line depth chart here.
I mean, this is a good question to tie into the offensive line. Chris says, if we get Feliciano back mid-season, who do you think we bench among the starting caliber guards? Now, this is a good question. Now, what I'll say is I think it's probably going to be dependent on whoever is playing right guard at the time, whether it's Winters or, whoever, like God forbid it's Cody Ford, whatever it is. But let's say it's Winters, right? Just for argument's sake. And let's say he's playing well. I think then the Bills probably just don't rush Feliciano back into the lineup and they just sit him there as their backup center / interior lineman. Now, they may say, look, Feliciano, we think he's a much better player than Brian Winters when the time comes. Brian Winters is struggling, or whoever, Darrell Williams, whoever it may be, is struggling. Feliciano gets inserted right back into the lineup. Then, the guy that gets benched is either Winters or Williams or whoever. But I could see a situation that if Winters or whoever, Williams, is playing well, then maybe Feliciano just comes back to a bench role where he's the backup guard for both guard positions and the backup center, because now that we've cut Spencer Long, we're kind of short on a backup center right now. With it, right now we kind of think it might be Evan Bain, and that may very well be the case. But you're not going to convince me right now that if Feliciano's back, he wouldn't be immediately the best backup center we have behind Morse. So,
yeah, like honestly, if the offensive line is playing well, I think John Feliciano slots right into the role that the Buffalo Bills probably envisioned for him. And no offense to John Feliciano, but if Brian Winters or Darrell Williams, whoever's playing right guard, is playing well, I apologize. Seriously, I apologize so much. This is really embarrassing. I pride myself, believe it or not, on professionalism. So I've re-recorded a lot of our Bills Guys podcast back in the day when dogs were barking. I've edited things, clipped things, cut things out because of dogs barking. So
bathe them, clip them.
Believe it or not, I do. Finally, my fiance's done it. She just took them. But I do pride myself on my professionalism.
right on time at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, right as the show is ending. But whether it's Daryl Williams or Brian Winters, I think, yeah, it's great to have John Feliciano. But at the end of the day, as much as I love John Feliciano, he's an average NFL starter. But you know what he is? An above average backup offensive lineman with versatility to play. Yeah, with versatility to play three positions: left guard, right guard, center. So he's a really good piece to have when he comes back. I definitely envision him going on the injured reserve designated to return, because he can be a really quality depth piece when he comes back. And hey, if Brian Winters or Daryl Williams or Ike Bucker shit the bed, Evan Bain shits the bed, guess what? Week 8 we have John Feliciano come back. Can Reed Ferguson play center? Oh, I don't.
No.
I love Reed. I don't doubt Reed for a second if he puts his mind to something. But if you swap him from tight end to center in Madden, I think he only goes up like 3 overall. So
plus, I think he's only like 250 pounds. Yeah. So, this long snapper is a very specialized position. If you guys get a chance, go back and watch our show where we interviewed Reed. Tons of cool information on the intricacies of long snapping, stuff I didn't know about. But I don't think just because he's snapping the ball means it's like a interchange. It doesn't mean it's an interchangeable situation there. So I don't think that would be possible.
All right. Any final questions before we wrap this thing up for the night? Again, apologies for my children. They were acting up tonight. I'm a fur dad. Man. Joe Miller is a girl dad. I am a fur dad.
Yeah, and Rico's daughter made an appearance on his show the other night. So your kids are showing up tonight on our show.
It's a it's the Buffalo Fanatics family, really.
Yes, exactly. So I think that should just about do it. I don't see any last minute questions, although I'm a little behind. You seen anything?
Yeah, I got a question for Brian Bowers here. He said Joe Miller and Jay Spence were saying they watched Winters on film and he was not good. Is he really going to be our starter? I would say yes. I feel pretty confident he's going to be a starter. And here's what I'll say about Brian Winters. He's been fighting some injuries for the past 3 or 4 years. So if, early on in his career, when he was healthy, he was a very good offensive lineman. Injuries have sort of deteriorated his career. You kind of saw it with Deion Dawkins, who kind of shat the bed his second year because his supporting cast wasn't that great. Brian Winters hasn't exactly been surrounded by some very good offensive linemen in New York. He was really good when Nick Mangold was next to him, and now he's got Mitch Morse next to him again. I'm not saying Brian Winters is perfect, but if he's healthy, he's just as good as John Feliciano or Daryl Williams.
Yeah, I mean
those guys are league average centers. That's probably what Brian Winters is going to be, a league average center. So, as long as he doesn't embarrass himself, that's fine. The one issue I have with him is, Ed Oliver was pushing him around like a rag doll. So I can't even imagine what guys like, nose tackles and things would do. But if he's healthy, and a lot of his injuries have been to the upper body, like the shoulder and things like that, if he's corrected that and he's gotten that right, same with Daryl Williams and his meniscus, if he's corrected it and gotten it right, both of those guys have higher upside than John Feliciano. Both of them. Because they both shown that they can be better football players than John Feliciano has ever been.
Yeah, and no one was saying how great John Feliciano was when we signed him, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone just kind of was assuming he was going to be the last lineman on the roster and potentially maybe not even make the roster. And I think, maybe that's a stretch a bit, but I don't think anyone envisioned that John Feliciano was going to be the starting right guard for a majority of 2019. I think people probably figured that was going to be Spencer Long last year, and it didn't turn out to be. So situation matters, right? Situation, timing, who you're surrounded by. This all factors in. So maybe he did struggle, in some time, and that film analysis by Jay Spence and Joe may be on. But again, I would go back and say, would we have said the same thing about John Feliciano if we watched his film as a Raider before we signed him? Probably. I don't even think he was a starter for the Raiders. Really, he came in spot duty. So. We'll see, right? It just depends what we can get out of him. So we'll see.
Offensive lineman too. It's surprising. Offensive line coaches have a lot to do with it as well. I mean, for years, Dante Scarnecchia in New England, sometimes you'll see offensive line coaches just catch lightning in a bottle. Bobby Johnson came from Indianapolis, where Indianapolis had an offensive line coach whose name I'll never in a million years be able to pronounce. So I do apologize. But he comes from that tree. from a guy who played fairly well with like league average offensive linemen and had a system that works. And the Buffalo Bills seem to really, I think, have caught lightning in a bottle in Bobby Johnson. I think the Buffalo Bills have a legitimate offensive line coach for, the first time in some good time. I mean, like in a long time. I know Aaron Kromer had some chops back in the day. We're not going to talk about what he does off the field, but Aaron Kromer had some on the field chops back in the day. But since we had guys like Jim McNally here, we really haven't, I don't think, had an offensive line coach with the chops of a Bobby Johnson here in quite some time. So, I think Bobby Johnson has a lot to say about it. I don't think the Buffalo Bills would have signed Brian Winters without Bobby Johnson watching film and okaying it and saying he can do things with that guy. So just like I have trust in Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, Bobby Johnson has earned my trust with the way he gave the Bills offensive line. Wasn't great last year by any stretch of the means, but it's been as good as it's been in like a decade, which is really saying something.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you surprised no one has signed Spencer Long yet? Thought he was a pretty decent lineman.
No one signed Adrian Waddle yet either. I mean, I feel like it's probably going to take, it's interesting, especially with the COVID stuff. I mean, that might just be all the evidence and proof you need to show you that Brian Winters is better than like Spencer Long, because Brian Winters had multiple suitors, according to me, Ian Rappaport, and he chose Buffalo. So multiple teams within like minutes of him being released from the Jets were like, come here, come sign with us. He chose Buffalo. So, I'm not going to read too much into Spencer Long not signing yet because COVID does play a role, but I mean, he's a slightly below average NFL offensive lineman, which makes him an average backup offensive lineman. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So he won't embarrass himself if he's surrounded by good players. But if you put him on a really bad offensive line surrounded by other bad offensive linemen, it's not going to be pretty.
And I think if we wouldn't have this affection to Spencer Long if he didn't have that center versatility, right? If he was just a guard and a guard only, I don't think the Bills fans would think twice about the fact that we released him. I think the concern was probably what we were going to do at center, knowing that Feliciano was hurt before we released Spencer Long, right? So the Feliciano injury news broke before the release of Spencer Long. So that I think was probably what was the surprising part. So again, the Bills must have faith in Bame or Bates or someone to play center if they think that Spencer Long was that expendable, that they thought he was that expendable that they didn't even care that he wouldn't be their backup center. So
and Chris in the comment section, he figures Long will get signed at some point. Yeah, he will. I mean, so will Adrian Waddle. They'll get signed at some point. They're too good of football players. Zachary Madden talked about wanting to see Ed Oliver ragdolling dudes all year. I think this is we talk about, we're talking about Tremaine Edmonds going into year 2 or year 3 and the leap that Trey White made year 3. But now you have, and Nate Asper on the NFL Basement made a really great point about our defense. You have Matt Milano and Trey White going into year 4 and really hitting their stride. You have Tremaine Edmonds heading into year 3 and really hitting his stride. You have Ed Oliver going into year 2 and really hitting his stride. You have so many young, high caliber, high potential, high ceiling players who are all hitting their prime, within the same window. So the Buffalo Bills defense really has an opportunity to do something special. If Ed Oliver and if Ed Oliver can catch lightning in a bottle, maybe a little quicker than it took guys like Trey White and Tremaine Edmonds to, look out, because he's going to be hitting that peak at the same time as those two. So if he's ragdolling people around this year and Tremaine Edmonds is going into year 3 and Trey White is going into year 4 and Matt Milano, I mean, just look out. This defense can be absolutely lethal. Yeah. We're talking number 1 defense in the NFL.
And you take out the players on the ascent that are young, and you just kind of look at the veterans in a vacuum, and you talk about Poyer, Hyde, Josh Norman, Jerry Hughes,
Addison,
and you talk about those guys without even mentioning the young guys that are on the ascent, and you're like, wow, that's a really nice group of veterans as well. So you have a really, really nice mix on that defense between veterans and young guys on the ascent.
All right. Big Hose Buffalo Rosario says, shout out from South Florida, Dunkirk native here. Yeah, Dave is a New York native living in Cary, North Carolina. I am a Buffalo native living in Phoenix, Arizona. So we feel you, man. We feel you. So shout out to all of our Bills Mafia members across the world and in Buffalo. So unless we have any other questions, that should just about do it for this evening. Again, I want to apologize for my dogs. I felt like I brought my C game tonight with the dog distracting me. So you best believe I'm going to get rested up over this weekend. I'm going to bring you my A game on Monday. I'm going to pull some take out of the ether, and I am going to roll up in here on Monday like Vince McMahon in that GIF. And I am going to come in with the hottest of takes on Monday, on Monday for you to make up for it. We can't let Jay Spence and Joe Miller get too big of an edge on us, you know?
Yeah, no, but they're our family too. So they're our family too. So we'll let it slide. But you know what? We bring you showed you could handle adversity tonight by handling the dogs. So I'm
like Josh Allen in the fourth quarter.
Joe Miller, not to call him out, but like he's got like really prime studio recording equipment, a nice like basement recording.
He's got scrapping it, man.
He's got a nice voice. Like when has he ever had to deal with adversity from recording a show? I don't think he ever has.
When has he ever had to scrape together studio equipment from Amazon?
Oh, he hasn't. But we love Joe. I'm just kidding.
I do want to say for Jay Spence, if you haven't had a chance yet, go listen to the Code of Conduct pod, which dropped Wednesday morning. The man has a gift for finding just booking the best interviews on all of Buffalo Fanatics. He sat down with Isaiah McKenzie and he had a really candid conversation with Isaiah McKenzie. And I like the part that stood out to me the most from this clip, and really go back and listen to it. It's awesome. He like straight up asked him. He had no fear. He's like, dude, the receiver room is stacked. What do you got to do to make the team? And Isaiah McKenzie said, like, dude, I don't know if I'm going to make the team. But he said, I came back to Buffalo knowing that because I know that if I can make it in Buffalo, I can make it anywhere. And being in Buffalo is going to make me the best version of myself. So when I get cut in Buffalo, I can go tear it up wherever I want in the National Football League, having been a part of what's going on here in Buffalo. I want to stay in Buffalo because of the winning culture. I want to stay in Buffalo because I want to be the best of the best. And the wide receiver room is loaded. If I don't make it here, I know what I learned in Buffalo will make me the best receiver possible. Like, what a spectacular freaking answer from Isaiah McKenzie. Mm-hmm. It was spectacular.
It makes you want him to make the team, honestly.
Oh, yeah. Because I remember we were clowning on Isaiah McKenzie so hard last offseason because there was the Bills embedded, right? And the Bills embedded made Isaiah McKenzie look terrible because he was chirping so much on the practice field. And Micah Hyde was like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, just shut up. Like, and all the players looked like Isaiah McKenzie was just a nuisance and he was annoying and petty. But like, then you hear him talk to Jay Spence and you're like, man, this dude's just wired right. Like, and that's the kind of guy that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane attract. Because that's the guy who was a UDFA. He earned it, right? He earned it. Just like Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane earned it. Mm-hmm. Just like Levi Wallace earned it. Like, that's what you got to love about the Buffalo Bills and the mindset of this locker room, man. Sorry, I'm sort of getting a little homerish with the take here at the end.
Well, just like you earned that jersey waiting six months to get it. That was a long wait.
University of Buffalo, baby. Well, he's referring to this view.
Yeah, I'm referring to that one. That was some adversity you had.
Who looks better in this jersey, me or Josh Allen? Don't answer that.
Yeah.
Who looks better in this jersey, me or Jeremy Harris? Don't answer that question.
I mean, I got to have your back on all these, right?
Jeremy Harris, best and probably only UB Bulls gif. Jeremy Harris in that tourney game. So. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. McKenzie was a 5th-round pick. I apologize. I thought he was a UDFA, but he was on a practice squad for a long, long time. Like, that dude was signed off of a practice squad. So,
Big Host is right here. This happens to us every week, every show. We're like, all right, we're done.
We tried to end it an hour
later. We're still talking. That's so great. That is so good.
You go to New Era for hats if you want. That's the only place I go to for hats. Dude, I don't care how. Like, I don't care. I love New Era hats. I don't give a shit. Like, buy whatever hat you think is the best. Just like I'll eat a burger from wherever the fuck I want to eat a burger from. Like, just go. If you like the burger, you like the burger. Like, just go do it.
And
like,
here's the thing.
We're all wearing Nike. It was made in a sweatshop.
My hat's Reebok, man.
I think you made it on your own. I think you stitched that on your own, dude.
It's got the green underneath. You know it's old.
I straight up think you just stitched that together on your own. Like, you bought like a little kit.
If I did this on my own, I'd be in the hat making business because this is a well-crafted hat. That's for sure. So we got a nice super chat here at the end, sending my love from Mark. Mark said he was late, but he still threw the super chat in there. So like all the love to Mark.
We appreciate it.
And
I will
always
never
love
I will
Mark's
never spell your
avatar.
name wrong again, Mark. I promise.
I always love Mark's avatar. We were talking about favorite all-time Bills. Stevie Johnson came up. That's a great picture. So thank you, Mark. Appreciate that very much. So
Big
look,
hose.
look at my fish.
That's a very nice fish. I think that fish is actually who's taller, that fish or Isaiah McKenzie?
Or me. I mean, I'm about the same height as that fish, seriously. So
All right.
anyway, before we get too crazy here, I think we'll probably actually wrap it up now.
All right, ladies and gents, it has been a pleasure. As always, this is a name drop. Name drop right at the end. Wouldn't mind if we re-signed Corey Leggett too. So a little name drop there at the end. But as always, like I said, I will be back on Monday with a vengeance in order to make up for whatever the heck it was that I did today. So I will be back on Monday. It's gonna be must-see TV. But until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.